It's not Clark.
My name is Kara.
I'm
Well, we're Barry.
The Flash has finally arrived and has somewhat reset the DCEU, but how has the movie wrapped up this bizarre era of DC films? After the success of No Way Home, DC clearly wanted a multiverse team-up movie, and the movie does achieve that to some degree. I found the Ezra Miller dual roles to be fine at times, and also downright terrible at other times, and that was to completely do with the acting. I felt the younger Barry Allen had some of the most annoying dialogue and writing I've seen in a long time, and often felt myself wanting the scene to end as fast as possible while he was in it. This does change later in the movie as younger Barry Allen does get better towards the third act, and I felt the third act as a whole was actually pretty good, but getting there was a drag to sit through. I enjoyed seeing Michael Keaton back as Batman. I love him in the Tim Burton movies and thought he did a great job returning to the role. The movie also does a great job of showing us how older this Batman is, with even the smallest fights he gets into taking a toll on the aging Batman's body. Another aspect of the film that I thought was done very well was the time traveling element and explanation. I found the visuals of the time traveling very interesting while still clearly conveying what is happening. The movie also introduces the idea that you can't change the past, and when you alter something in the past, you launch the universe into a completely new timeline that you are now a part of. I thought this was a great addition and something rather different than most time travel movie explanations from the past. However, there are some things that completely took me out of the movie, and the first one is the complete overuse of bad CGI. I am not kidding when I say that at least 50% of this movie is completely CGI. CGI people, CGI faces, CGI buildings, everything. Now, CGI is nothing new to modern cinema, but it is usually used alongside practical and real elements, such as actors or sets. But in this, it's extremely distracting. There's an action scene in the beginning where the Flash has to save a bunch of kids from a collapsing building, a bunch of babies. And every single baby looks like a weird Play-Doh monster or the kid from Son of the Mask, a movie that was released 18 years ago. And it just gets worse from there. There are entire scenes with characters that have been in the movie played by real actors and are for some reason completely CGI, and it is incredibly weird looking and takes you out of the movie. I don't think I've ever seen a movie with this many CGI actors ever. I've also never been a fan of the way the Flash runs, and that holds true in this. I can't help but laugh every time we see him running. I will say the comedy in this movie isn't as bad as I thought it would be, but there are still a lot of jokes that fell completely flat for me, along with some jokes, including one at the very end, that I thought were actually pretty funny. I also enjoyed getting to see Michael Shannon back as Zod. He does great, although he isn't in the movie very long, and following the trend is usually completely CGI. With that being said, I'm going to get into spoilers now, so feel free to skip ahead to the time code on screen if you don't want to hear any of those. It's your warning. 3, 2, 1. So the main plot of the movie centers around the Flash going back in time to save his mom from being murdered and his dad from being convicted of the murder, even though he didn't really do it. And I found that section of the story to work pretty well. I like seeing Barry take it all in when he gets to reunite with his family at the dinner table after going back in time to save them, and thought a lot of their scenes were well written. I also like the end when old and young Barry realize they can't save this new timeline they're in, and it's always destined to die when Zod arrives. I thought it was an interesting touch to put the heroes in a situation where they can't win and seeing how they deal with it. I like the idea that old Barry realizes he has to let his mom die, or in this new timeline, the entire planet dies as a result of Zod. I even like the touch of young Barry when he doesn't understand that they can't win, since it means if they fail, his entire world will just die. And he continues to try and stop it, becoming more and more deformed as he goes back in time and tries to perfect the fight and just takes more and more damage. Some really good body horror shown there, which makes sense with a director like Andy Muschietti coming from the It movies being able to achieve that. Like I stated before, I actually enjoyed the third act of the movie quite a bit, but it's getting there that I didn't enjoy. I felt like the first two acts were a lot of filler, just moving the characters along to eventually get them to the end. And once again, very odd pacing in the middle and even at the end of the movie. Once Kara, who is the new Superman in this timeline, leaves both of the Barrys and Batman, the movie just starts sprinting towards that final act. Kara leaves the heroes, flies to Zod, watches Zod start attacking the world, flies back, makes up with the heroes, even though there really wasn't a conflict to begin with, helps give Old Barry his powers back, and then all of our heroes arrive at the final battle, and that all happens in about 5 minutes of screen time. It's actual total whiplash watching that play out on screen, and was very odd, as nothing before that section or after that section is nearly as bad. I would also say most of the characters outside the main four are terribly uninteresting and not well written. Mostly are used for jokes, which I wasn't a fan of, and then quickly taken out of the movie. I also want to cover the ending and the many cameos present in the movie. At the end of the movie, young Barry has rewound time so much trying to beat Zod that all these timelines start to collapse on one another. In this, we see a lot of cameos, which I enjoyed, but once again, every single person is completely CGI. We see George Reeves' Superman, Adam West's Batman, and even Nicolas Cage's Superman, which was going to be a movie in the 90s that never happened, but obviously it would be an alternate timeline. All of these cameos were interesting to see, but that's all they were, and the scene lasted maybe 2 minutes. I still don't understand why it was all CGI. They could have easily pulled clips from those original George Reeves movies or the Adam West Batman TV show and tweak them a little bit to fit this narrative. I mean, most of them are just staring off in the distance. I feel like that could have been very easily accomplished, but instead it's just weird flesh puppet looking things that are in that uncanny valley of moving around, just completely CGI. Some of the faces look different second to second because they're moving so much. To wrap it up, at the end, Barry does go back in time to undo what he did at the start, resulting in his mom's death, but at the same time still moves some things around so that his dad won't be indicted for the murder. Another part that I enjoyed. Makes sense that he would still try and fix one thing, even if it is a small one, which again creates the new timeline and the new universe that the DCEU, if that's the name they're going with now, will be a part of. I also have to touch on the fact that I love the ending reveal of Batman being George Clooney, going back to his time in the absolutely atrocious Batman and Robin. I thought that was a great twist at the end. Would have loved to see Christian Bale's Batman, but I felt like this was a good joke to end on. With all that being said, I didn't hate The Flash and wasn't as bored as I thought I would be. The movie was definitely better than what I was expecting, but I was expecting a dumpster fire, and what we got was much better. I will say it's worth seeing the movie for the third act alone. The cameos are fun, and it sets up an interesting end with a new universe for James going to take on. And with all that being said, I'm going to give The Flash a 6.5 out of 10. Please consider leaving a comment below to add to the discussion. I want to hear what you guys thought of the movie as well. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with my content. And as always, I will see you in the next review.